Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Droning On with Altius Images. I'm Todd Dudley and I'm the founder and director of Altius Images, and in this Droning On series I'll be interviewing people in the drone industry. Today I'm delighted to be following up on episode 7 of our Drone Positive series. In that episode we spoke about how Aqualine Drones are trying to revolutionise organ delivery. Today I'm thrilled to be chatting to the CEO and founder of Aqualine Drones, Barry Alexander. Enjoy the podcast. And I'm delighted to say we've got the CEO and founder of Aqualine Drones, Barry Alexander, with us. Barry, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate your time. If you could just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, really. What have you been up to? How did you get into the drone industry, and a bit of background on yourself? That'd be great.
Sure. Well, I'm from the Caribbean originally, the island of St. Lucia, which actually used to be an English colony, and migrated to the U.S. In my early teens in pursuit of a career in aviation. After me being fully trained, I returned back to the Caribbean to put together what was called an air ambulance operation to support what was called at the time health sector reform. When we think of drones, the first thing that's worthy of note is that drones are essentially aircraft, miniaturized airplanes and helicopters operating in an aviation-centric environment. And so, having spent many decades as an aviator, by natural extension, got into drones as being somewhat of a burgeoning industry, but having a background really made a difference in how we started looking at drones.
Yeah, I'm sure. So very, very, very experienced in the aviation industry then.
Absolutely, and most of our leadership is made up of veteran pilots, airline pilots, both on the military and civilian side of things. So we bring collectively over 300 years of experience, aviation experience, into the drone space.
Wow, that's a decent bank of experience to have. That's amazing.
Yes.
And so when you were in the aviation industry, was that obviously you mentioned the air hospital there? Did you fly commercially at all as well, or?
Yes. I was an airline captain for over 20 years.
Oh wow!
Flew helicopters, flew multiple aircraft.
Amazing.
Different types of fixed wing aircraft. Aircraft mechanic as well. So worked for a few aircraft manufacturers.
Okay.
And service providers. Flight instructor, and so having that broad-based aviation background really ties into the narrative that to exist or be sustained in the industry requires you to have somewhat of a fundamental knowledge and appreciation for the aviation industry.
Yeah, for sure. So sort of diving in a little bit then into the business, into Aqualine Drones. Those that have listened to the podcast before might recognise the company name because we did an episode of Drone Positive on you guys after we found the story of you basically working with Vertex, is it, to do some organ transportation, that kind of thing. So some people might recognise the name, but for those that don't, could you just give us a bit of background into Aqualine Drones, how that came about, what led you to create it, and that kind of thing?
Sure. So Aqualine Drones was founded about 15 months ago, but prior to which we spent about 3.5 to 4 years in incubation, during which time spent traveling around the world, essentially vetting the industry, visiting manufacturers, drone manufacturers, manufacturers of components, trying to identify the requisite resources that would be required to launch the drone operation, which includes personnel, and also identifying the key entry points into the industry, which were somewhat areas of deficiency. We determined from very early on that it was in the area of large-scale drone manufacturing in the U.S., but also cloud operations.
Okay. Yeah.
And so where we are today is that not only are we drone manufacturers, but our core competency is cloud computing,
Mm-hmm.
which is done through the AD Cloud, which is the first UAV dedicated cloud that we're aware of that provides support and maintenance and management for the entire UAV infrastructure. So drones, mobile command centers, essentially anything IoT or AI enabled
Mm-hmm.
can be managed by our cloud.
Okay. Okay, I see. So if you were to sort of maybe if there's someone listening that doesn't know much about drones, if you were to sort of sum up what Aqualine Drones does, just in a brief couple of sentences, what would you say?
Yep. Aqualine Drones is a drone solutions company,
Mm-hmm.
and by that I mean we we vet every use case. A customer comes to us with a problem or an issue they need solved. We thoroughly examine what the need is,
Mm-hmm.
and we put a solution together, which includes the use of drones to arrive at a desired outcome. So whether that use case be in precision farming, aerial ranching, heavy asset inspection,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of a solution that includes drones, which everything is then supported by our cloud infrastructure.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like you're making a lot of processes that otherwise would be fairly complicated. Hopefully, a lot more simple and straightforward.
Yes, fairly complicated on the back end, but
Yeah.
very simplistic on the front end as far as the user experience.
Okay. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Which is the key, really. That you worry about the complicated stuff,
Yes,
as long as they're happy.
yes.
And then what would you say
And you
makes?
mentioned,
Oh, sorry. Go on, Barry.
I was saying you mentioned Vertex.
Mm.
Um, we could touch a bit on that.
Yeah. Please do. Please do.
So Vertex is essentially a software application that aggregates the demand of organs in a system,
Mm-hmm.
and that software application uses essentially AI based algorithms
Mm-hmm.
to optimize the movement of organs throughout a continuum of services and providers, organ procurement organizations, and transplant facilities.
Yeah.
Aqualine was brought in to provide the operational infrastructure. So we essentially are going to be providing the drones for first and last mile delivery, but also the manned aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
which is the middle segment of the journey, but also the cloud support for the asset management part of it, which includes a blockchain chain of custody platform that allows everyone within the system to see in real time where the organs are from the moment they're harvested,
Wow.
but also to ascertain the condition or viability of the organs while they're being transported.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty exciting stuff. That is.
Yes, and some there are a few efforts out there which are essentially academic exercises,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the first, to our knowledge, commercialized effort directed at the safe and efficient transportation of body organs.
Okay, I see. And is this sort of, is it operational? Is it underway, or are we still sort of in the testing
It's
phase? And
it's under development as we speak.
okay, amazing, amazing. And is that going to be? I assume it will have to start fairly localized to test it, and then hopefully spread out across the US, or
Yes, it'll it's most of the testing is going to be done in the state of Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and and more than likely we are going to look at some of the denser areas as far as delivery services, but also organ procurement.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Texas area, Houston, is more than likely the second region that's going to receive that service once it's better defined.
Okay. And it feels like years ago now, where everyone got quite excited about Amazon delivery drones and getting their pizza delivered by drone and that kind of thing. Obviously, when that all comes out, everyone gets very excited, and then there's a bit of a dip before it actually becomes reality. What do you see as the
Yes.
sort of obstacles that you guys are working against that might take a bit longer than sort of the general public think it will?
Well, delivery services can be categorized. While Amazon is looking for the waivers to provide drone delivery services of um, of goods and goods primarily.
Mm-hmm.
That's somewhat of a nicety. It's somewhat of a convenience.
Yeah, yeah,
The the authorization or accommodation we're looking for is to move organs. So it's more life saving, if you may.
mm-hmm.
We're not asking for permission to deliver dog food or
Yeah,
bird seed.
yeah.
We're seeking permission to provide emergency response services using drones and the associated infrastructure.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So does because
And
it
that
because
that
it's more.
may
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was saying that majority will be the impetus for the approvals,
Yeah,
that it's being used for humanitarian purposes and not necessarily for public convenience.
yeah. Okay, for sure. Yeah. So presumably that makes it a bit more, as you say, makes it a bit more straightforward to maybe get it passed more easily than it would be if we were delivering food or goods or that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a value add to society.
Okay. And I think most of our listeners are UK based, Barry. So if you wouldn't mind just spending maybe 2 or 3 minutes just outlining what the drone landscape looks like in America at the moment, what are the regulations and what do you have to do to become a qualified pilot and that kind of thing. If you could just spend a couple of minutes on that, that'd be great.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. So the first thing that's worthy of note is that um, drone operations in the U.S. is approximately 7 years behind where the rest of the world is,
Okay.
and that's from having traveled the world extensively and properly vetting it.
Mm.
And part of the reason is because of the lag in regulation in the U.S.,
Yeah.
where drones started off as essentially gadgetry or toys,
Mm-hmm.
which companies like DJI, toy companies, flooded the markets with these toys. Once once people started finding commercial applications for drones by adding sensors and cameras to them and identifying possible use cases, the it became more relevant. And so there was no regulatory framework in place up until about 2 years ago that really you know put drones in a different operational category,
Yeah.
requiring proper licensure through the FAA,
Mm-hmm.
Part 107, to where we are today, where they're looking at amendments to Part 107 now that commercial applications for drones is becoming more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only getting more intense, by the day, as more and more use cases, pop up. Drone technology increases, against the backdrop of Industry 4.0, with certain technologies that further enhance the capabilities of drones, like 5G.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And do you think the added regulation, because it's sort of happening in the UK over here as well. Do you think the added regulation is ultimately a good thing, even if it might slow us down at this stage? Do you think that ultimately in the long run it's definitely going to be a good thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We as a company, we advocate for the enforcement of regulation,
Yeah.
because we recognize drones as aircraft, and as aircraft, they have the potential of damaging property or hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be a regulatory framework that recognizes safety as being essential to the safe operation or integration of drones into the national airspace system. If we want human beings to coexist with greater comfort working alongside drones, then we have to ensure for safety first. Also, as you know, safety being pivotal to any drone model that you know um, is essentially good for public acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And what's the general public perception of drones like in the US? Because I started this
Uh,
podcast to try and spread a bit of positivity, obviously, because here it's not
yes,
great. So what's it like over there?
yes, it started off being perceived as a nuisance,
Yeah.
and even today when you hear news articles talking about bad operators flying into restricted
Hmm.
areas like within airport
Yeah.
environments.
Yeah.
And as a pilot, I've been in situations where we've been asked to enter what's called a hold because a drone was sighted on
Hmm.
the arrival path to
Hmm.
the airport. That's a bit unsettling, not just for the inconvenience, but also for the danger, the potential danger that it
Yeah.
imposes on manned aircraft. And so the public being aware of that, the public being inconvenienced by such occurrences, typically makes for a bad, you know, experience. So us speaking about drones and us speaking about increasing the drone density
Hmm.
is really it really comes along with us also saying that we're responsible operators. We encourage the industry to enforce the standards that would ensure that safety became a priority, but also standardization and compliance with FAA regulation is essential to a healthy UAV environment.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the key. I think that's what a lot of people a lot of pilots and drone operators are frustrated about here is that the regulations that responsible pilots adhere to aren't actually being enforced by them. So whilst we're going through the effort to do it all, the people that aren't doing that aren't being punished at the moment, which is quite frustrating.
Yeah, it may be more expensive, but at the end of the day, it's safer.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. So then jumping back to Aquiline, what do you think makes your company unique from any others that are sort of operating in a similar space?
We're a drone airline, and we operate. Our business structure is similar to that of an airline
Hmm.
in that we recognize safety first, not just as a priority, but as essential to any operational framework.
Hmm.
But also that we comply with FAA regulations. Our leadership is made up of mainly veteran aviators, i.e., veteran airline pilots, cloud architects, software engineers, aerospace engineers,
Hmm.
technologists. But we also take a different approach, which from the onset, the decision was made to pioneer a different direction where we would set a new standard, a new gold standard in UAV technology, but also in UAV operations. Most other operators from what I am aware of, spent a lot of time trying to circumvent those regulations
Yeah.
that have been in place for that very purpose,
Yeah.
protecting the public. And so when we say safety first as the first thing that we say when we define ourselves, that can jolly well be our primary differentiator, um, in the industry.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking you're working on a drone on demand app or something along those lines?
Oh yes, absolutely. That should be launched sometime later this year, so toward the fourth quarter of 2020.
Wow.
And that will give the average person the ability to order drone services through a mobile app.
Okay.
That app is about 7 months into development. Um, and when it's launched, the average person will have the ability to, order drone services for some time in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And on the day and time when the service is being performed, that individual or client will have the ability to task the drone or interact with the drone through voice command and the toggle on the app
Mm-hmm.
to make slight corrections to the left, to the right, to hover in place, to zoom in and out, and have that video footage stored, analyzed, and whatever else they want to do with it.
Wow. So will that
So
be?
it's essentially like an Uber service
Yeah. Okay.
in the sky.
So the drones for that service will be autonomous, or will there be a pilot behind them if needed?
Yes, they'll be totally autonomous.
Wow.
The sort of responsibility of the driver would be to geolocate the drone. The
Yeah.
driver drives around with a roof rack,
Mm-hmm.
the drone and a cover, and he gets to when the driver signs in to work into the shift with an admin panel that gets populated with all the service requests for the day or for the shift, and they would pick from that list, the service requests that are closest to where they are or more expensive, drive to the location, deploy the drone. It's pre-programmed to do whatever the customer has requested and paid for,
Mm-hmm.
and the drone goes and performs the service, comes back, docks, recharges, and he's off to the next job.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. I'll look forward to seeing how that works. That'll be amazing.
Absolutely.
And then in the bit of research I was doing, but before the podcast, I'm hoping you can explain this a bit further for us Brits. I noticed that you guys have an FAA 135 air carrier certificate.
Yes.
Which I assume differentiates you from a lot of drone companies. Can you, again, sorry to sound a bit naive, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. So to get to an air carrier certificate is what is required to start and operate, an airline.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different kinds of, air carrier certificates. Part 121, Part 135.
Mm-hmm.
121 being scheduled airline service, 135 being more on demand. There's only 4 companies in the U.S., to my knowledge. Amazon, Google, UPS, and Aqualine.
Wow.
With that 135 air carrier certificate.
There's some good names to be associated with.
Yes, but the ultimate goal for Aqualine is to rise to the number 1 position as far as having an air carrier certificate that's structured for both manned and unmanned operations.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be able to operate manned aircraft, i.e., jets and helicopters, but also commercial drones.
Yeah. Okay. I really like that phrase that you're being a drone airline. I really like that.
Yes, and in the same fashion or manner that you would operate manned aircraft. So we're not, when everything is said and done, the hope is to not seek waivers and exemptions but to operate drones normally as you would manned
Yeah.
aircraft.
Okay.
If you meet the certification criteria and you stay within the operating parameters as set forth by the regulations, that's the ultimate goal of the certificate.
Yeah, it's a refreshing approach to take, because I think, like you mentioned earlier, the sense is that a lot of people look for workarounds and shortcuts rather than trying to do it properly.
Yes, it's not difficult to establish professional legitimacy.
Mm.
You have to be a responsible corporate citizen and plan on doing things right.
Yeah.
From the onset.
Yeah, for sure. And could you touch on a little bit about your link to sort of the manufacturing of drones as well?
Yes. So earlier this year, we took out a 10-year lease on 2 floors in the office suite building in downtown Hartford, where we're headquartered,
Mm-hmm.
and that will allow us to advance our manufacturing schedule, where we will first start manufacturing spherical drones, i.e., the Godbot.
Mm-hmm.
Thereafter, the prototyping for the drones that will be used in the Vertex operation, and then we'll go into full production, which also includes OEM services, manufacturing parts on behalf of other manufacturers or operators. So quite a robust, manufacturing undertaking.
Mm. Yeah.
But and again, that too will be managed by our cloud, where all the facilities, the workstation cells will be AI monitored, so that our cloud will be able to provide the best optimized working environments based on the genetic nuances of the people working inside the facility.
Okay. Some very exciting stuff to come, it sounds like, for you guys this year.
Yes. So it's been years in the planning,
Yeah.
and we've fully deployed with all prototypes in place, and we're ready to do business.
Amazing. So speaking of business, then you're still relatively young as a company. How are you sort of cultivating your new customers and your new partners at the moment?
We've actively engaged the U.S. military,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite a large um, customer base.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also we target the more complex use cases that you would not typically find ordinary drone operators targeting, such as forest fire prevention, which can be part of a more holistic solution, using airborne drones that
Mm-hmm.
are paired to the ground-based drones like the Godbot,
Yep.
and they work in tandem to ensure that the forest is protected from fires
Yeah.
before they even become fires.
Mm-hmm.
So if you detect strong heat signature on the ground where the drone is talking to the ground-based drone, which rolls over to inspect, you know, um, the area. It can also detonate fire retardant before a kindle starts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of a more holistic solution, which would not top would not typically be a service model that a smaller operator would provide.
Okay. Wonderful. So yeah, as you say, not a pretty big big contact to be in touch with the military, especially for you guys.
Yes, and additionally,
Yeah.
let me just without cutting you short,
No, please do.
our approach is also somewhat different. It's almost like 180 degrees from what everyone else is doing, in that your typical drone operator goes out and acquires a drone or multiple drones, and he will provide a service model consistent with the limitations or performance capabilities of the drone. So if the drone could only fly for 30 minutes on a battery pack,
Mm.
then he will provide 30 minutes of surveillance or 25 minutes of surveillance,
Yeah.
or you know um, or footage. Um, we investigate the use case, the use case first, and we will design a solution around that use case.
Hmm.
So in designing and producing a drone, it really accurately matches the use case rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. It sounds like the right approach to take, and I think you'll probably have some people copying you. I would imagine.
That's why you should not say too much.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And then lastly on Aquiline, before we do a few more general things, if that's okay. You've spoken a lot about some very exciting things you've got coming up this year. What's your sort of vision for the company's future, a bit more long term?
Long term, Aqualine aspires to be the industry exemplar,
Hmm.
and so pioneering a new direction as far as you know, you know, uh, building that operational infrastructure encapsulated by our cloud
Hmm.
is step one. Making sure that all the devices are somewhat connected um, with the real-time operating system.
Hmm.
That's two, and three, making sure that there is a coordination between land and ground-based drones, all in an effort to provide total planetary protection. Is the third goal.
Okay. Fantastic. Sounds like a pretty bright future. Hopefully.
Yes, we hope so.
Yes, I hope so too. For anyone that's listening that would like to learn a little bit more, you can visit aqualinedrones.com or check out the link in the description of the podcast. That'll be down below. Have you got a few minutes to go a bit more general, Barry?
Sure.
Okay, great. Just a few sort of quick fire questions to finish off then, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
First one. Now, I've had a couple of guests so far, and the question I've had to ask them is what's their favourite drone to fly and why. But I think for a amount of your experience, I'll have to ask you what's your favourite anything to fly and why.
My favorite thing to fly is the Boeing 747, aka the jumbo jet,
Good answer.
which I've flown for a while in many different configurations, passenger and cargo,
Hmm.
because it's way different from any other airplane or aircraft that I've flown.
Yeah.
Starting with its weight, its speed, your typical Dash 8 747 Dash 8 model
Hmm.
weighs close to 1 million pounds at max gross takeoff.
Wow.
Carries about 400,000 pounds of fuel, which is more than twice, the weight of a normal passenger aircraft when it's fully loaded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that puts it in an entirely different category. So flying the Queen of the Sky is somewhat the pinnacle of any pilot's aviation
Yeah.
career, and I got to do it extensively on a global scale, which gives me the satisfaction of achievement from what I started off aspiring to do, which was to become an airline pilot when I was little.
Mm.
So the 747 is definitely the aircraft I enjoy flying the most.
That's amazing. Without wanting to belittle Mark or Harry's answers from a couple of weeks ago, I think that's probably the best answer we've had so far. I think. And then next one. What's your This can be sort of manned aviation or drone stuff. What's your favourite place to fly and why?
Favorite place to fly?
Yeah.
Um, anywhere in the world, and I've been just about everywhere in the world.
Hmm.
I do like Australia.
Hmm.
I do like let's see, South America,
Hmm.
parts of South America. Chile, Ecuador, Colombia, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Um, Parts of Europe. I like Germany. I like England.
Good answer. Good answer. The fans will love that
Let's
one.
see, and even parts of the Middle East. I mean, we often don't think of the Middle East as being as vibrant, but from a technology standpoint, the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, Dubai,
Yeah.
quite advanced.
Hmm.
Um, not typically what people think of it to be.
Mm.
but parts of Asia as well. Very, very, good and vibrant place to be.
Okay, nice. You have been all over the place, haven't you? That's amazing.
Yes.
And then again, I think we might get a pretty good answer out of you for this one. What has been your most challenging flight and why? It's a tricky one.
Most challenging flight and why? Well, we're trained to perform every mission that we're assigned, and so some missions aren't as easy, but nonetheless, the last company I worked for, or actually still work for, Atlas Air,
Mm-hmm.
I consider to be, and they're the largest operators of 747s in the world. Hands down, I consider Atlas Air to be the best airline in the world.
Wow.
And the training is second to none. And I say that having been a pilot for quite some time, that they really go above and beyond to ensure that the level of training that's received flying the 747, which they're also responsible for training the pilots of Air Force One,
Mm-hmm.
is second to none. And so no matter how challenging the flight is, I can always rely on the training that I've gotten from Atlas Air as being best in class, and totally prepares you for just about any situation you could encounter that is outside the norm.
Nice. That's a high praise indeed for Atlas Air. So shout out to them. And if you could film somewhere or something with a drone that you've never filmed before, what would it be? And you don't have to worry about regulations or planning or anything like that. Let's just assume you can film anything you want. What would it be?
How about the White Cliffs of Dover?
Oh, good choice. Good choice. One close to home for us. I like it. Very nice. Very nice. Playing to the audience well, Barry. I like it. It's a good one. And then finally, if you could make one change to the industry, what would it be?
The only change, a more standardized model,
Mm-hmm.
which we're actually working toward implementing, so that everybody operates drones or manufactures drones to a common standard, which is what currently happens in the manned aircraft space.
Yeah.
So implementing a standardized system or model is the only change, or the first change I would make. But with that, again comes our advocacy for safety, compliance, and standardization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And do you think it's almost certainly going that way, like it has done with manned aviation. Do you think we're far off sort of standardized regulation, or what do you think?
We push on a daily basis to have a lot of things implemented. It's unfortunate that things are taking as long as they are, but within a few years, I think we will have a much healthier drone environment, in that you will have the appropriate regulatory framework that's enforceable in place, and will allow people to be or to feel comfortable knowing that drones are being integrated into the national airspace, but also into society in a very responsible manner, and that should lend a certain degree of comfort, but also gain the public's trust through adequate education, so that they understand that drones do have an additive value to society, and they're not a nuisance as they're currently perceived.
Okay, good answer. Yeah, it's nice to hear you sound sort of so optimistic about the future, because I certainly am as well. So that's great to hear. Well, Barry, that about does it really. So thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I'm very, very, very grateful for you coming on. So as I said earlier, if you want to find out more about Aqualine Drones, you can check out the link in the description. It's aquilinedrones.com. But from us, Barry, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
And thanks for having me, and good day to your beloved listeners.
No problem. Thanks, Barry. Bye-bye. So there we go, a fascinating insight with Barry Alexander, the CEO and founder of Aqualine Drones. Sounds like they've got some very, very exciting things coming up. But that does it for episode 3 of the Droning On with Altius Images series. Another huge thank you to Barry and to Aqualine Drones for their time today. It was great to chat, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. For those that are new to the podcast, as well as the Droning On series, we also have a Drone Positive series, which appears on the same feed. These come out every single Monday and focus on positive drone stories. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss an episode. Please feel free to get in touch with us on social media. We are at Altius Images on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us easily enough on Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube. All of the links for our channels are below. We'd love to hear from you, so do reach out. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Please subscribe to and share the podcast so that we can spread it as far and wide as possible. We will see you next Monday for episode 10 of the Drone Positive podcast. But for now, fly safe, folks. Bye-bye.